Welcome to Grab Your Gear here on Tuesday. Getting a little later start today than normal. I had a commitment and Jack couldn't find his way to the office. But anyhow, this is Jack Windsor, of course, with the Windsor Report, the editor-in-chief of that fine publication, also a host on 89.9, The Answer.
98.9.
So I always do that.
That's okay.
98.
98.9 FM, The Answer. But most people don't listen on their radio.
They do the
anyway.
podcast.
They do the podcast, so they download it. It's easy to mess
And
up.
that's the Windsor Report.
Yep.
Okay, so real quick before we get started, we're doing this Tuesday afternoon. Coup in South Korea, which none of us really understand what's going on, but that is a major economic hub in the Asian theater, but also just kind of a sign more political unrest around the world that the next president of the United States gets to deal with.
100%. I mean, if you're keeping track at home, what is that now? That's Ukraine and Russia.
Yep.
That is the Middle East,
Taiwan and China.
Taiwan and China, North Korea, South Korea, and then Donald Trump yesterday did the old FAFO.
Yes.
Either release the hostages or else.
There will be hell to pay, I think,
right.
in the Middle East is what he said.
In the Middle East. So, there is a ton of unrest, political, geopolitical controversies, wars, and you don't want to be conspiratorial about it, but you go, all right, you have a new regime about to take over in just, what is it? What's today? December 3rd?
Yeah, 20th of January. So we're a few weeks away.
Oh, yeah, about 6 weeks. And so you wonder, are people trying to do things now that they know they won't get away with on January 20th?
Absolutely believe that.
So then it's interesting to think about who's connected to who and who's pulling the strings.
Okay.
But it's a travesty because my understanding is North Korea's the communist regime.
Yes.
South Korea is supposed to be the bastion of democracy.
Yes.
Or
You know,
some freedom.
it's also a major hub of production for flat screen TVs, camera production, but also a lot of people don't know this, electrical generators. So like if you have a generator, and I'm talking like a power plant type generator or a substation.
So backup systems for big enterprises.
Yeah, most of that almost exclusively comes from South Korea now. So if you have a major outage at a, how do you put this without saying, let's say just something major happens and somebody takes out a power plant. I mean, that most of that to replace has to come from South Korea. And I did a film on this years back with Tinfoil Ted. I think he was working with me at the time. And we're very bad at inventorying that stuff.
Right.
And so hopefully nothing happens, but that is one thing. So it's not just TVs and cameras. It's also major industrial production as well over there.
It feels like, and I know we won't get into it today, there's a larger discussion to be had here about a global economy versus, the argument against America First is that America's trying to essentially close its borders and be self-sustaining, and that doesn't make sense. And certainly participating in the global economy makes sense. But when you have all of these conflicts and or wars going on, you go, man, do you want to build a large portion of your
Do you want to be in
economic
business with
prosperity
those nut jobs?
with these countries that can't seem to get it together?
All right, so we'll keep an eye on that. But no, there are consequences when anything like that happens, which is, of course, why we bring it up. Big story since Sunday night, though, has been the Hunter Biden pardon. President's son, Hunter Biden, got the full unconditional pardon, not the you're pardoned for that. He got the anything you may have done that nobody knows about, you're clear. He was facing actually prison for felony gun and tax conviction. He was convicted on tax fraud, and if it wasn't fraud, it was something like that. And he had a gun felony, and he is now clear from anything that he may have done over the past decade. Thoughts?
Well, my first thought was, well, of course, there's going to be a blanket pardon, and it's going to go back at least a decade. Peter Schweitzer already wrote the book on it. He spelled out all of Hunter Biden's business dealings in China and Ukraine. That's how we first heard about Burisma.
Yep.
And so the commentary now is, well, yeah, but he did that when Dad wasn't in office. Well, the reality is when you look at some of the transactions and some of the relationships, Hunter Biden seems to have hitched a ride with Daddy-O on Air Force Two to go to places like China and ink some deals. And so my guess is that could be a double-edged sword, but it takes Hunter Biden potentially off the hook for unscrupulous dealings.
Does it take the rest of the family off?
No. But
including the president.
but let's be real about this. We live in a system right now. Ceteris paribus. All things being equal, going forward, will it matter? I mean, let's look at what Hillary Clinton did. I'm still amazed that we uncovered crime and she peddled influence internationally. She compromised American security. And
And she had a foundation. The Clinton Foundation was not exactly. I think has that been closed?
if it's been closed, all I know is that, and I always get these names mixed up.
Yeah.
Comey, because there's Comer, and then there's Comey.
Yeah.
Comey
Yep.
was the intelligence guy who basically said, "Yeah,
He
she
was
did a
head of the
lot
FBI.
wrong,
Head of the FBI.
but but we're not going to prosecute."
Now that she ties because the Clinton Foundation was very active in Haiti, which
Yes.
then you saw some of the consequences of Haiti when you did your Springfield story. Everything does tie back. It's incredible.
It's so I look at this and I go, I'm not surprised that the pardon was issued. There are two issues here, and then I'll try to be brief. Number one, my understanding is that he cannot plead the fifth. So if Congressman
Correct.
Jim Jordan wants to call him in
Yep.
and say, look, I need to know X, Y, and Z,
Has
if
to.
Hunter Biden does not show up, then he's essentially able to be detained, arrested, and imprisoned for defying a congressional
Yeah, the Fifth
subpoena.
Amendment works both ways.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now, though, that he's been pardoned, he has to answer the question. So that creates an interesting scenario. But this is the bigger deal for me. And people laugh at me. If Trump had done this,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it would have made sense. Because let's think back to it was Ford, right? Ford
Pardon
pardoned
Nixon.
and that really, I believe, was an effort to smooth things over, to heal the country.
He wanted the
potentially.
country not to be in turmoil trying to prosecute the leader of the free world.
So if Trump does it, people would go, man, oh man, Shevitz, this guy is basically saying we're trying to come together. But if Joe Biden does it, which is what happened, he went back on a promise. To me, all this does is throw more gasoline on the fire of distrust. That if your name is Biden, you get a get out of jail free card, which is what my friend, former Deputy Attorney General of Ohio, Mark Weaver, wrote about in his Newsweek column this week. I think the optics on it are bad. I think the implications on it are bad.
Also, I think if Trump probably would have maybe if Trump considered pardoning Hunter Biden, I think he purposely would not have pardoned any other Bidens. I think he would have let that run.
So Sarah, James, the whole plan would have been maybe
James
Trump.
Biden is apparently very active, as active as Hunter was. So
That's
we'll
right.
see. The political fallout of something like that, though, does this give Trump, they say, cover for because Biden says it was clear that his son was treated differently by the DOJ. I mean, Trump could go, I agree, and I was too. So we're going to blow the whole thing up. I mean, I think that's one of the concerns that you can put them on the same page.
You can put them on the same page, and depending on which side of the aisle you sit on, you'd look at it and go, of course he was treated differently. He was protected, and I think that is the issue that many Americans have. If I'm Hunter Biden, if you're Hunter Biden, we're not getting that treatment. And thankfully there was a judge that had an eagle eye that went over the paperwork. If you remember,
Yes.
the attorneys tried to pull one over.
So was
on the
there
justice
was there
system.
precedent for anything like this ever been written up?
It's
No.
crazy.
So, all right. So we'll see what happens to that. I think another Biden is yet to come. Maybe they wait till the 20th of January, or well, it'd have to be the 19th before midnight. Election fallout in the resistance movement. I wanted to ask you about this. What used to be called the mainstream media, which I think has even lost that title, but they were in harmony that the president was putting, the media was really propping up Joe Biden as a upstanding, putting the law before and the American people before his family. Obviously, they were for him, but it just shows even more that they almost were in on the gig. I mean, it's a subtlety. I watched it. I go, look at the number of people, from Willie Geitz at NBC to every hack on CNN, who just talked about the moral authority that Joe Biden has. Well, that got flushed on the toilet.
100%. I mean, but here's the problem, and I want to go back to what you said. The mainstream. I've seen more people in the last 3 weeks call what we do, independent news, podcasting, we're relevant. We are the news now. I've heard people claim that, and I Now, do I fully believe it? I still think that there's an audience that mainstream outlets get, but I think
Yeah,
their
the
days
Today
are
Show's
numbered.
still going to get suburban, women, and
Right.
I mean, but how many people are really warming up? Just can't wait to get home to watch at 6:30 the nightly news.
I haven't turned the news on in a long time.
No.
And I don't think a lot of people have either. But the bigger issue here is the mainstream press is an extension. They're surrogates of the Democrat Party. They have
Yes.
been. And you talked about elections. I want to take you real quickly through this. In 2016, they were on the team shouting that Trump cheated, he colluded with Russia,
Yep.
and that's how he got into the White House. So there was cheating in 2016. In 2020, when there were a bunch of ballots found and 11th hour election law changes happened, social media companies through cabals put their thumbs on the scale by censoring information and promoting other information to get Biden in the White House. People said they cheated, and the press went, "You election denier." And then in 2023, they went, "Well, yeah, there was something, but it wasn't at scale, Joe. It wasn't large enough to throw the election." 2024, Trump wins. They go back to 2016. He cheated. He cheated. He must have cheated.
but-
I mean, you can't take these people seriously.
Which I think is what happened. I think people in America decided, these people are full of crap. You can't have happen what happened and not have seen that what we call the mainstream media, or what was the mainstream media, has lost any sense of credibility for the majority of Americans.
I guess the question I would ask you, and I would ask anyone watching this, do you feel like when you turn on CNN or MSNBC, or you pick up the Washington Post, or whatever, the New York Times, or even the Wall Street Journal, if it's not the opinion page, when you hear, see, and read those things, are you connecting? I mean, do you feel like what is being promoted, what is being written about, the stories that are being told are aligned with where you are as a person and where we are as a country? I think they are so far gone. I think that's their significant issue.
I look at it differently. Now, having worked in a newsroom or two, everybody who works I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people who work in newsrooms are people that wanted to be famous through acting, or they just wanted to be famous. And then they found journalism. This is journalism. That's a long time ago since it's been in a newsroom. Now, I think they're all actors. I think whatever network they were on, they just took the persona and the role that they were given, and there is no substance of, curiosity that had driven journalists for centuries. I think it's gone. I think it's, I'm an actor, here's my role, here's my talking points.
That actually resonates with me. I think of Chris Cuomo.
Yes.
I think of a guy who was literally belittling and badgering and bullying people who said, wait a minute, these mitigation strategies don't make sense. The jab doesn't stop the spread or the contraction of the virus. I mean, he really essentially called those people murderers.
Yes.
Called them insane, called them anti-vaxxers. And then once that went out of, vogue, he decides, maybe Joe Rogan was right to take that drug. Maybe it wasn't.
But when did he come to that, epiphany?
Well, when after the tipping point, when it
When
was
he
very
lost his
clear.
job, or when he was still at CNN?
After he lost his job.
Yes. So then he decided he had to reinvent himself again.
But he never fully apologized. And I saw he actually interacted with a friend of mine on social media over the last week and called the guy exhausting. And I went, you know what's exhausting? You never apologized, Chris. You never admitted you were wrong. There was never any accountability for your divisive and what I would call dangerous behavior.
Where does it go? Because we are kind of in the same thing where we have a specific audience. We're messaging to a lot of people in the contract, construction work, contractors, electricians, plumbers. This network was designed for people to get up and go to work every day. You have an independent media source. You message to people who kind of cut through the crap and are looking for information. You started in Ohio, now you're branching out. Do we see a complete realignment, or do you think the actors, as I called them earlier, still have their place?
I think the actors will still have their places with people who prefer them. I think, though, there is a growing group of people who want news, information, opinion that matters, that is impactful, if that's the right word. But here's the thing. The cheese has been moved. and a couple of things have happened. We've talked about this before. The giant companies bought out local newsrooms. They gutted them.
Yep.
And you have way fewer reporters trying to cover, still a significant amount of stuff that needs to be covered. They're not doing it appropriately. They're also slanted. But then you've got the digital arena, and the challenges that we have at the Ohio Press Network aren't different than the challenges of mainstream outlets. One of the consistent challenges for both is people really aren't as willing as they used to be to buy news. Only about 12% of people say, I want to pony up some money to buy information and some news, because social media platforms, podcasts are often free, or a certain amount of it is free. And so where I think you're going to see the business model start to change and evolve is, how do you combine subscription revenue with donor revenue, with grants from these larger organizations? Unfortunately, donors and grants tend to come more readily from the left.
Yes.
So how do you maintain independence? So these are all things that companies like ours are going to have to figure out. But ultimately, it's the consumer that decides. And so I think the consumer interest, the consumer demand has shifted. I think people want information that's real, that they can act on, and I think they want it in really short tidbits, which is probably a struggle for people like me who take it, 10 minutes to get around the barn.
You have a relationship with Vivek Ramaswamy, and I was just wondering your thoughts on his new volunteer job, along with Elon Musk, which is what, D.O.G.E. or whatever they call it. Of really, it's almost like when a investment management firm or a capital or an equity firm comes in, and they want to take over a business. First thing they do is they just get rid of everything that's fat. I have a feeling they're going to use that. Will it work in government? Will it work? Because they have no real legislative authority. They just have a mandate to make government efficient.
So let's talk about the power that they have. There are some laws on the books that give the executive branch some temporary authority to consolidate, to divide, to essentially abolish certain agencies. So that power is there. The length of that power, time, whatever, scale, it does ultimately depend on Congress. Barack Obama tried to do some things in the executive branch. Congress didn't go along with it. So Trump is going to try to do those things. I hope what we see is, there's this old Pareto principle, Italian economist, 20% of your inputs give you 80% of your outputs. What I would expect to see from Elon and Vivek is finding those 3, 4, 5 things that you consolidate, abolish, eliminate, restructure, that create massive changes in output. And so I don't know what those things are. I know what I'd like to see them be. I mean, you and I have talked about these project labor agreements.
Yes.
To me, that's a very simple way to slough off.
It
20,
artificially
30,
raises the cost.
40% of
Yep,
government spending.
Yep. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
And you can structure it. You can structure it in such a way that unions still win, and merit shops still win, and taxpayers save gazillions of dollars.
All you have to do is you have to make a decision. I think. I mean, it's not I'm pro-union or any. You throw that out. Are you trying to eliminate taxpayer waste? That's your first thing. Anything that artificially screws the taxpayer, you're out. Free markets. We should compete with we are a capitalistic society. Let's act like one.
Yep.
Let's don't act like a subsidy. What we just subsidize what we like. Those days, I think, are gone. I hope
so.
Under Trump. And so the last thing would be, what is corruption in government? What are there sweetheart deals? Are there things that basically go back to number one, screw the taxpayer, because you have a corrupt sweetheart deal, or you're propping up an agency?
Well, when you have someone in the U.S. Senate like J.D. Vance, who's there as a freshman, and looks and goes, wait a minute, and I'm going to give you a number that's not accurate, but just for the sake of example, he says, wait a minute, $350 million went to Ukraine. We can't account for it. Time out. Stop the train.
Pentagon has not passed an audit in 7 audits. Yeah.
So when you have somebody that has fresh eyes and looks at it and goes, wait a minute, okay, this is a rampant problem. This isn't something that is a one-off event. And so that's the kind of stuff that needs to change. And people are going to, I think, start saying out loud more the things that we were whispering before, which is it is the Biden family. It is certain groups of politicians and families
And
that have
organizations that get
profited
preference. Yep.
by sending money over here, and then eventually somehow that money comes back by sitting on a board at Burisma, by inking a deal through Rosemont Seneca with some Chinese energy company. I mean, these are the things that taxpayers get screwed on that I think we're all sick and tired of.
We're winding down on time here, but I want to ask you a couple things before I let you go. The government, as reported, spent hundreds of millions, if not billion, on DEI. Wouldn't that be an easy target? Because
it
the
has to
world
be.
is starting to reject it at massive rates. Corporate America's rejecting it. Shane Gillis is on Bud Light commercials now. You see corporate. You have schools now starting to get away from that stuff. You think we're going to see a massive reduction of DEI?
Not without a fight. You have to remember the people who promote this are masters at cognitively distancing themselves from the results of the insane policies they try to implement. That truly is the deal. And the battle has to be here where we call out every single time DEI doesn't work because it's based on a false premise.
Yes.
If I'm a football coach, I put the best damn player on the football field, not because he's orange, black, white, purple, whatever. He can throw the ball, he can catch the ball, he can block, period. And the further we get away from that, the more atrocious the outcome. And people go, well, I don't like, Joe, we should not be shocked that we don't like the output in our public education system because we are teaching kids things that don't serve them appropriately in life. Only if we go to a Marxist communist regime. And certainly we're not doing that yet.
Well, Ramaswamy and Musk, I don't think are fans of DEI.
How can you be?
I think they're fans of merit, period, on whatever, and they don't care what you do, but they're not going to push you into a certain way of lifestyle like that. Like if you come in that way and that's what you believe, fine, but don't expect me to endorse it. Don't expect me to pay for it. I think that's what we're going to see.
Let me get very strong in my opinion here.
Yeah.
Didn't earn it. DEI didn't
Yeah.
earn it. And inherently it's racist and it is dangerous to teach kids that they either are behind because of their skin color or they're ahead because of their skin color. You're either ahead or behind because of what you do, your character, how you show up every day consistently. That's it. And if you're teaching kids anything else, you are crippling them for life.
Yeah, and I think Americans voted to get rid of all that crap. So I want to ask you something. We live in Ohio as we wind up here, but the CEO at Intel has stepped down. Intel is a major chip project in Ohio and a couple of other places in the country. We just talked about South, Korea going through at least at the time we're doing this, some sort of a coup. You have the Taiwan and China tensions. What do you think the future, all that backdrop is for a place like Columbus, Ohio, or outside of Columbus, where you have this Intel situation? I mean, people don't resign because things are going well.
Well, let's look at this. They lost $16.6 billion in the third quarter of 2024. They slashed about 15,000 workers. And in the midst of that, their CEO, Pat Gelsinger, announced that he was retiring. Immediately after that, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and Lieutenant Governor John Husted put out a statement that basically thanked Gelsinger and said, hey, we're going to continue to go forward in Ohio. The CHIPS Act money has been essentially made available.
Did the check come in?
Well, but here's the question, right? And so I reached out to Intel. I reached out to those local economic development divisions here in Ohio. And the answer I got back was it was announced on November 26th that the Biden-Harris administration awarded, this X billions of dollars. But my question directly was, how much has been given? Has it all been given? Is it coming in trenches?
Is check clear?
Trenches. How is this coming? Right? They haven't answered that yet. So I need to dive back in. But then it brings up the bigger issue, which you and I have talked about before. There was already scuttlebutt that the Intel project was going either sideways or in a direction that we weren't sold on. Mm-hmm. And so this certainly proves that, and this is my concern, the builders that are out there on site now are coming out of pocket themselves because Joe Biden, Kamala Harris didn't deliver the low interest loans, the grants. And so to me, we were going to have to do the math. They lost $16.6 billion.
Yes.
How many billions of dollars did they get through the CHIPS Act? if it's not a great deal more, I still think we've got a problem, don't you?
Something's going to happen there, because it seems there are a lot of rumors about its slowed construction, whatever. It's supposed to be a massive complex. So will it be an Intel plant, or will it be Wally World? Who knows? I mean, something's going to happen out there.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll find out. Wait, hey, before we go, your top story on the Ohio Press Network, I saw judge enforces subpoenas against Act Blue. What's that all about? And
Yeah.
and if they want to learn more, they can go to the Ohio Press Network. But give us the headline, because it looked like a very interesting story.
We were blessed. Mark Block actually broke the story of his lawsuit in Wisconsin on the Windsor Report. And we published the story yesterday on the Ohio Press Network. You can read it at theohiopressnetwork.com. John Solomon over at Just the News has done incredible work following through on this story. In a nutshell, Mr. Block has an email account that he signed up to register on Act Blue a long time ago. Earlier this year, he started getting letters, and those letters would say, Mr. Block, thank you for your $30 contribution to Sherrod Brown's campaign. Thank you for your $50 contribution to Joe Biden's campaign. And he's going, wait a minute. When I first talked to Mr. Block, he had received about 65 letters. He has since received somewhere in the ballpark of 700. And so all of a sudden, he's going, wait a minute, I haven't contributed anything. Why am I getting letters from Act Blue, which is a place where people can contribute money, and then that money is doled out to candidates and causes? I didn't contribute anything. I have over close to 700 gives that I've done to these candidates. We've got a problem. And so what it appears to be is that there is what they would call straw man contributions. Somebody's funneling money in, pretending that they're going through Mr. Block and other people. And what's his name that used to be at Project Veritas, James, went out. O'Keefe, and he first discovered that it was going on, I think. He started to shed light on it. Mark Block said, well, wait a minute, I'm a guy who's received all these letters. So he filed a lawsuit in Wisconsin. They wanted to subpoena Act Blue for records, and Act Blue fought it and said, no, we don't need to turn these records over. This is kind of a bogus claim. And the judge there goes, wait a minute, something's not right here. We're going to continue.
Could it be tied to some Ohio senatorial campaigns?
It should. Well, if what Mr. Block told me is accurate and what he filed with the court in Wisconsin is accurate, and I have no reason to believe that it's not, lame duck U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown is a guy whose campaign received contributions through these allegedly straw donations. So this could be an issue. I've sent the information on to Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost. It'll be interesting to see if he starts to investigate and take action on this.
For more on that, you can go to the Ohio Press Network. That's your lead story when I looked there before we started. In the meantime, if you have any suggested questions or anything, go ahead and contact us here at Grab Your Gear. You just go ahead and email Dick at grabyourgear.net. Topics, interest, whatever, we will cover them. Jack's at the Ohio Press Network. He's also at 98.9 The Answer, and his podcast is The Windsor Report. In the meantime, I'm Joe for Jack. We'll see you next week back here on Grab Your Gear.